Welcome to the Sleepy Historian, where history drifts gently into dreams. Tonight we slip into the grimy shadows of a medieval city, where you, an assassin, stalk through alleys reeking of rot and regret. Picture it. Cobblestones slick with muck, air thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and spilled ale. You pull your cloak tighter, eyes darting to every corner, because one wrong step could mean a dagger in your back. Being a medieval assassin sounds thrilling, but trust me, you probably won't survive this. The odds are stacked against you. From the rats scurrying underfoot to the guards who'd rather skewer first and ask questions, never. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love hearing where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in York, around 1350, and the night is heavy. No moon to betray your steps, just the occasional flicker of a torch bolted to a tavern wall. Your boots squish into something you hope is mud, but the sharp tang in the air suggests otherwise. Medieval streets are open sewers, and chamber pots get emptied from second-story windows with a careless shout of Gardaloo. You duck into an alley, pressing against a damp wall as a drunk stumbles past, singing off-key about a lost love. His breath reeks of sour ale, and you wrinkle your nose, grateful for the shadows. Your target tonight is a merchant, a man with too many enemies and not enough sense to hire better guards. He's holed up in a townhouse across the market square, and you've got until dawn to finish the job. The city pulses with life. Even at this hour, a baker's apprentice hauls flour sacks down the street, his curses muffled by the clatter of a cart. Somewhere, a dog barks, sharp and insistent, making your pulse jump. You've done this before, but every job feels like a roll of the dice. Historians still argue whether assassins like you were lone wolves or part of shadowy guilds. But one thing's clear, your life expectancy is shorter than a candle in a storm. You check the dagger at your belt. Its blade nicked but sharp enough. No fancy gear here, just a blade, a vial of questionable poison, and your wits, which are fraying with every step. The market square looms ahead, stalls shuttered but reeking of yesterday's fish and rotting cabbage. You pause, scanning for movement. A quirky tidbit from the era. Some assassins used pig's blood to fake their own deaths, smearing it on their cloaks and slipping away when clients got too demanding. It's tempting, but you've got debts to pay, and disappearing isn't cheap. You move forward, sticking to the shadows, your cloak blending with the night. The merchant's house is 3 stories of timber and plaster, its windows dark except for a faint glow on the top floor. That's where he'll be, counting his coins or snoring beside a mistress. Your job is to make sure he doesn't see sunrise. Your stomach growls, a reminder you haven't eaten since yesterday's stale bread, which was more grit than grain. Food's scarce when you're always on the move, and a full belly makes you slow. You pass a pile of refuse. The smell so vile it's almost a weapon. Joke number 1. If you bottled this stench, you wouldn't need poison to clear a room. The square is quiet now, save for the creak of a sign swinging in the wind, its rusty hinges whining like a tired ghost. You're exposed here. No cover but a rickety cart piled with moldy straw. A guard could round the corner any second, and your cloak's too threadbare to pass as a noble's disguise. You crouch, heart thudding, and plan your approach. The front door's out. Too many eyes. Even at this hour, a side alley might lead to a servant's entrance. But alleys mean rats, and rats mean noise. You recall a job in London where a squealing rodent nearly got you caught. Funny now, but not then. The merchant's wealth comes from wool, a mainstream fact that built cities like York into trade hubs by the 14th century. But wool money buys enemies, and someone, maybe a rival or a scorned partner, wants him gone. You don't ask why. You just need the coin to keep the tavern keeper from tossing you out. The alley it is. You slip along the townhouse's wall, fingers brushing rough timber splinters. A window above is cracked open, spilling the scent of tallow candles and roasted meat. A cruel tease for your empty stomach. Your mouth waters, but you shove the hunger down. Joke 2. Medieval assassins. The only job where you starve while surrounded by feasts. You test the servant's door. Its lock rusted but sturdy. No picking it tonight with your shaky hands. You'll need to climb. Find a way in through that window. The wall's uneven, offering handholds. But one slip means a broken neck, and no one's mourning an assassin. You start climbing, fingers digging into crumbling plaster, your breath shallow to keep quiet. The city hums below, oblivious to your mission. A shout echoes from the square. A guard calling to his mate about a dice game gone sour. You freeze, pressed against the wall, praying they don't look up. They don't. But your nerves are frayed, sweat beating despite the chill. This is your life. One heart-stopping moment after another. All for a pouch of silver that might not even come. You reach the window, its ledge barely wide enough for your boots. Peering inside, you see a hallway, empty but for a flickering candle. You ease through, landing softly on creaking floorboards. The house smells of wax and wealth, a stark contrast to the street's filth. Your dagger's weight is a comfort, but the poison vial in your pocket feels like a curse. Its contents as likely to kill you as your target. Joke 3. Trust a medieval poisoner about as much as a tavern's fresh stew. You move toward the stairs, each step a gamble. The merchant's up there, and so's your future, if you can just survive the night. You're inside the merchant's townhouse, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and melted wax, a far cry from the reeking streets of York you left behind. Your boots, still caked with whatever you stepped in outside, leave faint smears on the floorboards, and you wince, hoping no servants awake to notice. The candlelit hallway stretches before you, its shadows dancing like untrustworthy allies. Your target's upstairs, likely sleeping off a feast while you risk everything for a handful of coin. But before you creep further, you pause, heart steadying, and recall the unwritten code that keeps assassins like you alive, or at least delays the inevitable. It's not written in some grand tome, but whispered in taverns and alleys. A set of rules that balance loyalty to your client with the grim reality of survival. The first rule is simple. Never ask who's paying. You got this job through a hooded figure in a dockside inn, their voice low, their purse heavy. Could be a rival merchant, a jilted lover, or even a bishop with a grudge. You don't know, and you don't care. Asking gets you killed, either by the client or by someone they've hired to tie up loose ends. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval commerce was cutthroat, with trade guilds wielding power that rivaled nobility, often settling scores through hired blades like you. The merchant upstairs, with his wool empire, probably crossed the wrong guildmaster, and now you're the consequence. You ease toward the staircase, its wooden steps worn smooth by years of bustling servants. The second rule hits you. Always have an exit. You glance back at the window you climbed through, its faint outline your lifeline if things go sour. Every job needs a fallback, a shadowed alley or a sewer grate to vanish into. You've heard tales of assassins trapped in manors, cornered like rats because they got cocky. Not you, not tonight. Your fingers brush the dagger at your belt, its hilt wrapped in frayed leather, and you feel the weight of the poison vial, a backup that's as risky as it is deadly. The third rule is trickier. Loyalty is a trap. You're loyal to the coin, not the client, because clients change their minds. You once knew a killer, Jack of Bristol, who trusted a noble's promise of protection. Jack's head ended up on a pike, a lesson you've never forgotten. You pause halfway up the stairs, a creak underfoot making you freeze. The house is quiet, but your pulse hammers. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins carried charms, like a rabbit's foot soaked in vinegar, believing it warded off betrayal. You don't buy that nonsense, but you pat your pocket anyway, where a worn copper coin, your only keepsake, sits, superstitions free, and you'll take any edge. The fourth rule is about silence, not just in movement but in what you say. You never brag, never confess, even to a priest. Historians still argue whether assassins formed secret societies, passing codes through symbols scratched on tavern tables, or if they were just desperate loners. You lean toward the latter. Most killers you've met were too paranoid to organize. You reach the top of the stairs, a hallway branching left and right. The merchant's room is to the right, you're sure, but a faint snore from the left suggests servants or guards. You choose right, moving like a shadow, your cloak brushing the wall. The code's final piece is brutal. Trust no one, not the client, not your contacts, not even the tavern wench who pours your ale. You learned this the hard way. A job in London where a friend sold you out for half a shilling. You escaped. He didn't. Joke 1. Trust a medieval ally, and you'll wake up with a knife for a pillow. You glide past a tapestry, its faded threads depicting a hunt, and the irony isn't lost on you. You're the hunter, but also the prey. Always one mistake from becoming someone else's target. You reach a heavy oak door, the merchant's chamber. Your hand hovers over the latch, but you pause, running through the code again. No questions. Always an exit. Loyalty's a lie. Stay silent. Trust no one. It's kept you alive this long, but every job chips away at your nerves. The door's unlocked. A careless mistake by someone inside. You ease it open, the hinges mercifully silent, and slip into the room. The merchant's bed is across the chamber, curtains drawn, a faint wheeze betraying his presence. Your eyes adjust to the dim glow of a dying fire. A table holds a half-eaten loaf and a silver goblet. Wealth you'll never touch. Joke 2. Assassins get paid in coin, but never in leftovers. Sadly, the poison vial feels heavy in your pocket, but you hesitate. Poison's slow, and you need to be gone before dawn. The dagger's quicker, but messier. You recall the code's unspoken addendum, efficiency over flair. No need for theatrics, just get in, get out, get paid. You step closer, the floorboards cold under your boots. The merchant shifts, muttering in his sleep, and you freeze, hand on your dagger. A mainstream fact, York's merchants were key to England's economy, their taxes funding wars and cathedrals. But this one's time is up, and you're the reaper. You notice a small clay pot by the bed, likely a folk remedy for aches, a quirky detail that reminds you how even the rich cling to odd cures. You're almost at the bed when a floorboard groans, loud as thunder in the silence. Your heart lurches, the code screaming in your mind. Always an exit. You glance at the window, calculating the drop. Joke 3. Medieval floors, snitching on assassins since forever. You wait, breath held. but no one stirs. The merchant snores on, oblivious. You're safe. For now, the code's rules swirl in your head, a grim mantra that's both shield and chain. You draw your dagger, its blade catching the firelight, and prepare to act. Survival means following the code, but it also means living with what it demands. You're not sure which is heavier, the blade or the guilt. You stand over the merchant's bed, dagger in hand, the firelight flickering across his sleeping form. His snores are uneven, a wheeze that speaks of too much wine and not enough caution. The room smells of wax and wealth, but your focus is on the blade, its edge dulled by years of use and a rusty tang that makes you question its reliability. You're an assassin, not a knight with a polished armory, and your tools reflect the grim reality of your trade. Tonight, you'll rely on this battered dagger and a vial of poison that's as likely to curdle your guts as your target's. Every job is a gamble, and the crude equipment you carry stacks the odds against you. You step closer, the floorboards mercifully silent this time. Your cloak brushes the bed's velvet curtain, and you freeze, heart thudding. One wrong move, and you're done. You recall the merchant's routine, pieced together from days of watching. He drinks late, sleeps heavily, and trusts his flimsy locks. But trust is a luxury you can't afford. Your dagger's rust isn't just cosmetic. It's a reminder of the damp alleys you call home, where moisture eats metal faster than you can earn coin to replace it. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval blacksmiths produced thousands of blades, but only the elite got quality steel, leaving folks like you with brittle, second-rate iron. You kneel beside the bed, studying the merchant's face, lined with the arrogance of wealth. Your poison vial, tucked in your pocket, is a last resort. You bought it from a toothless apothecary in a backstreet market, her promises as shaky as her hands. The concoction, a murky blend of hemlock and who knows what, might kill in minutes or just give him a stomachache. A quirky tidbit. Some medieval poisons were mixed with honey to mask the taste, but yours smells like despair and bad decisions. You'd laugh if you weren't so tense. Joke 1. Medieval poison. The only thing less reliable than medieval weather. You weigh your options. The dagger's quicker, but blood's messy, and you're not keen on leaving a trail. Poison's cleaner, but timing it is a nightmare. You'd need to slip it into his goblet and pray he drinks before a servant does. You glance at the silver goblet on the table, half full of wine, its surface gleaming like a taunt. You could pour the poison now, but there's no guarantee it'll work before dawn. And you can't linger. Historians still argue whether assassins preferred blades or toxins, with some claiming poisons were a woman's weapon. A debate that feels pointless when you're the one holding both. Your hands tremble. Not from fear, but from hunger and cold. You haven't eaten properly in days, and the chill of York's night clings to your bones. The dagger's weight feels heavier than it should, its rust flaking onto your palm. You recall a job last year, a botched hit where the blade snapped mid-strike, forcing you to flee empty-handed. You survived. Barely, but the memory lingers like a bad smell. You test the dagger's edge against your thumb. Drawing a bead of blood, it'll do. You move to the table, eyeing the goblet. The poison's your backup, but using it means gambling on the apothecary's skill, or lack thereof. You pull the vial from your pocket, its cork loose enough to make you wince. One spill, and you're the one writhing. You uncork it, the acrid scent hitting you like a slap. Joke 2. If this poison fails, you'll just bore him to death with your life story. You tilt the vial, letting a few drops fall into the wine, swirling it to blend. The merchant stirs, muttering something about wool prices, and you drop low, dagger ready. He settles, snoring again, and you exhale. The poison's in play, but you're not waiting to see if it works. You need to be gone, back to the shadows where you belong. You glance at the window, your exit, but the drop looks dicier from this side. You remember that London job, the one with the squealing rat, and how you swore you'd plan better. Yet here you are, with a rusty dagger and a dubious poison, gambling your life on a merchant's bad habits. You creep toward the door. Every step a prayer. The house is still, but you know better than to trust silence. A servant could wake, a guard could patrol, or worse, the merchant could choke on that poison and scream before he dies. You grip the dagger tighter, its rust gritty against your skin. The code from last night's memory. Always have an exit, echoes in your mind. You're breaking it by lingering, but you need to be sure the job's done. You pause at the door, listening for footsteps, for anything, nothing. You ease the door open, the hallway dark and empty. The tapestry from earlier, with its faded hunters, seems to watch you, a silent judge. You slip out, moving back toward the stairs. Joke 3. Medieval assassins, where your biggest enemy is your own equipment. The poison might work, or it might not, but you can't stay to find out. You descend the stairs, each creak a betrayal, and head for the window you climbed through. The night outside is colder now, the city's stench waiting to greet you. You climb out, dropping to the alley with a muffled thud, your dagger still in hand. Its rust a grim reminder of how close you cut it. The merchant's fate is out of your hands now, left to the poison's whims. You melt into the shadows, the code's rules swirling in your head. Trust no one, always an exit. You've survived, for now, but the night's not over, and neither are the risks. You're back in the filthy alleys of York, the merchant's townhouse fading into the night behind you. The air reeks of damp straw and something sour, maybe a spilled barrel of ale or worse. Your boots slip on slick cobblestones, but you keep moving, heart still racing from the close call upstairs. The poison's in the merchant's goblet, but whether it'll work is anyone's guess. That apothecary's smirk didn't inspire confidence. For now, you need distance, and fast. You head toward the heart of the city, where the tavern district hums even at this hour. Your next move depends on intel, and taverns are where secrets spill as freely as cheap wine. You're an assassin, and eavesdropping in a noisy tap room is as much a skill as wielding a dagger. The tavern you're aiming for, the Black Boar, squats near the river, its sign creaking in the wind. You pull your cloak tighter, hiding the dagger's bulge at your belt. The streets are quieter now, but not empty. A night watchman's lantern bobs in the distance, and you duck into a doorway to avoid his gaze. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval taverns were social hubs, where merchants, laborers, and rogues like you swapped gossip, deals, and betrayals. The Black Boar's no exception, its walls soaked in secrets and stale beer. You reach its door, the wood warped from years of river damp, and slip inside. The heat hits you first, a wall of sweat, smoke, and roasted meat. The tap room's packed, tables crowded with red-faced men shouting over dice games and women pouring ale from chipped pitchers. You scan the room, eyes adjusting to the dim glow of rushlights. Your goal is to blend in, catch a whisper about the merchant's enemies, or better, who hired you. You find a corner table, half hidden by a sagging beam, and sit, keeping your hood up. The bench is sticky, and you don't want to know why. Joke 1. Medieval taverns, where the ale's bad, but the secrets are vintage. You order a cup of ale, the smallest coin from your pouch. Buying a murky brew that tastes like regret, you sip slowly, ears tuned to the chaos. A group of wool traders at the next table grumbles about taxes, one muttering about a cheating bastard who sounds a lot like your target. You lean closer, pretending to adjust your boot. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins used hollowed-out coins to smuggle messages, passing them in taverns like this. You've never tried it. Too fiddly, but you wish you had one now to jot down what you're hearing. The trader's talk shifts to a guild feud. Names you don't know but file away for later. Across the room, a bard strums a lute, his voice warbling about a knight's lost love. It's terrible, but it covers your presence. You catch a snippet from two cloaked figures in a booth, their heads bent close. One mentions a delivery gone wrong. The other hisses about a fat purse for fixing it. Could be your client, could be nothing, but you strain to hear more. Historians still argue whether taverns were recruiting grounds for assassins or just rumor mills, and nights like this make you lean toward the latter. Too much noise, not enough clarity. The ale's halfway gone, and your stomach protests its sour bite. You haven't eaten since that stale bread, and the tavern stew, bubbling in a cauldron, smells tempting but risky. You've seen what passes for meat in places like this. You focus on the cloaked figures, catching a name, Roderick, tied to a shipment of wool that never arrived. It's a lead. Maybe the merchant's rival, maybe your client's alias. You memorize it. Your only tool tonight besides the rusty dagger and that cursed poison vial, which you're starting to regret using. A serving girl brushes past, her tray sloshing ale, and you flinch, hand twitching towards your dagger. She doesn't notice, but your nerves are raw. Joke 2. Assassins don't get jumpy. They just practice for the grave. You force yourself to relax, sipping the ale to look busy. The trader's talk turns to a sheriff cracking down on smugglers. Bad news if he's sniffing around the merchant's death. You need to know if the job's blown before you collect your pay, or you're the one swinging from a rope. The bard's song ends, earning a mix of cheers and thrown bread crusts. You use the commotion to shift closer to the cloaked figures. Their voices clearer now. One mentions a blade in the dark, and your pulse spikes. Are they talking about you or another job? You can't tell, but the word guild slips out, and you wonder if your client's tied to York's trade wars. The tavern's heat is stifling, your cloak too heavy, but you keep it on. Anonymity is your shield. You recall the merchant's goblet, the poison swirling in his wine, and hope it's working so you can get paid and vanish. The door bangs open, a gust of cold air cutting through the smoke. A man in a leather jerkin strides in, his eyes scanning the room. He's no drunk. His posture screams hired muscle. You slouch, letting your cup hide your face. Joke 3. Medieval taverns, where everyone's a suspect. Especially you. He doesn't spot you, but he joins the cloaked figures, his voice low and urgent. You catch before dawn and clean it up. And your gut twists. Is this about the merchant, or are you just paranoid? You finish the ale, leaving a few dregs to avoid suspicion, and stand, weaving through the crowd. The tavern's noise covers your exit, but you feel eyes on your back. Outside, the river's stench hits you, a grim reminder of the city's underbelly. You've got a name, Roderick, and a hunch about a guild feud, but no proof. The merchant's fate is still a question mark, and so's your survival. You melt into the shadows, heading for the market square, where answers or trouble might be waiting. You're back in York's market square, the night colder now, the air biting through your threadbare cloak. The stench of rotting fish and damp straw lingers, but it's familiar, almost comforting compared to the tavern's claustrophobic heat. Your boots crunch on gravel as you skirt the shuttered stalls, eyes scanning for trouble. The black boar's intel, that name Roderick and whispers of a guild feud, sits heavy in your mind. But it's the merchant's poisoned goblet that haunts you most. Did it work? Or are you already a hunted man? You need to blend in, move fast, and get to a safe perch to watch the townhouse for signs of chaos. But first, you've got to look like you belong, and your flimsy disguise, a patched cloak and a stolen hat, is about to be tested in the worst way possible. The square's not empty, even at this hour. A few late-night peddlers hawk wilted cabbages, and a drunk sways against a cart, muttering to himself. You adjust your hat, its brim too wide and smelling faintly of horse, a gift from a stable you passed earlier. Your cloak's meant to pass you off as a laborer, but it's too short, exposing your mud-caked boots and the daggers bulge at your belt. A mainstream historical fact, medieval markets were economic engines, with York Square bustling day and night, drawing everyone from nobles to thieves like you. But blending in is harder than it sounds when every glance feels like an accusation. You move toward a crowd near a baker's stall, where a man haggles over day-old bread. You mimic his slouch, trying to look like just another hungry soul, but the hat slips, tilting at an odd angle, and a woman selling apples narrows her eyes. You flash a weak smile, muttering about a long day, but she's not buying it. Your heart picks up, and you weave through the crowd, aiming for an alley. The disguise is failing, and you're too exposed here. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins used flour to gray their hair, faking age for cover. But you've got no flour, just sweat and panic. The crowd thickens near a juggler tossing torches, his flames casting jittery shadows. You slip behind a stall, hoping to vanish, but a shout cuts through the noise. Oi, you there. It's a guard, his chainmail glinting under a torch. He's pointing at you, or maybe the drunk nearby. You can't tell. Your disguise is a joke, and running now would scream guilt. Joke 1. Medieval disguises. Perfect if you want to look like a suspicious hobo. You pull the hat lower and shuffle toward a cart piled with barrels, praying he's after someone else. He's not. The guard strides closer, his hand on his sword hilt, eyes locked on you. The crowd parts, sensing trouble, and your pulse hammers. Historians still argue whether medieval guards were corrupt brutes or just overworked, but this one's scowl suggests he's both. You duck behind the cart, heart in your throat, and sprint for the alley. The guard shouts, boots pounding behind you. Your cloak snags on a barrel, ripping audibly, and you curse under your breath. The hat flies off, tumbling into the muck, and you're exposed, your face no longer hidden. The alley's narrow, its walls slick with grime. You dodge a pile of refuse, the stench enough to gag a horse. Your dagger bounces against your hip, useless now unless you're cornered. The guard's gaining, his curses echoing, and you spot a low wall ahead. You vault it, landing hard in a courtyard filled with stacked crates. The impact jars your knees, but you scramble behind the crates, breath ragged. Joke 2. Nothing says stealthy assassin like tripping over your own cloak. The guard's voice fades, replaced by the clatter of his sword against the wall. He's lost you. For now, you crouch, chest heaving, and assess the damage. The cloak's torn, the hat's gone, and your disguise is officially a disaster. You're lucky the guard didn't get a good look at your face, but you're not safe yet. The courtyard's a dead end, surrounded by high walls, and you hear voices approaching, maybe more guards or nosy locals. You need a new cover, fast. You spot a pile of sacks, likely flour or grain, and smear some dust on your face, hoping it'll pass as dirt. It's a pathetic attempt, but it's all you've got. You climb a crate, peering over the wall. The alley's clear, but the square's buzzing now. The jugglers' crowd dispersing as guards shout about a thief. They mean you, or close enough. You drop back down, mind racing. The merchant's townhouse isn't far. You could circle back, Check if the poison worked, but not looking like this. You recall that London job, the rat that nearly doomed you, and how a quick change of cloak saved your skin. No such luck tonight. You're stuck with what's on your back. You slip over the wall, landing softer this time, and stick to the shadows. The market's chaos is your ally, but it's also a trap. Every face a potential witness. Joke 3. Medieval markets, where you're either invisible or everybody's problem. You need a new disguise, maybe a hood from a sleeping beggar or a shawl from a laundry line. The tavern intel, Roderick and the guild feud, feels distant now, but it's your only lead to who's pulling the strings. You head for a quieter street, where the city's pulse slows, hoping to scavenge something to cover your face before the guards tighten their net. The night's getting colder, and so are your chances. Your torn cloak flaps uselessly, and the poison vial in your pocket feels like a bad omen. You're an assassin, not a hero, and heroes don't survive nights like this. You move on, eyes sharp, praying the shadows hold you a little longer. You're skulking through York's darker streets, the market square's chaos fading behind you, though the sting of your failed disguise still burns. Your torn cloak flaps like a wounded bird, and your face, dusted with stolen flour, itches fiercely. The merchant's poisoned goblet is a distant worry now. Your focus is survival, and you're heading toward the city's edge, where a noble's fortress looms. Your next move is to check if the merchant's death has stirred trouble. But getting there means infiltrating a castle, and that starts with scaling its outer wall. It's a moonless night, perfect for stealth, but the fortress's sheer stone and guarded gates make your rusty dagger and shaky nerves feel like cruel jokes. You're an assassin, not a siege engine, and this climb could be your last. The streets narrow as you approach the castle, the air growing sharper, laced with the river's damp and the faint smoke of watchfires. You stick to alleys, avoiding the glow of torches where guards patrol. The fortress, a hulking mass of stone, was built to keep out armies, not lone killers like you, but its walls are your only way in. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval castles like York's were economic and military hubs, housing nobles who controlled trade and justice. Your client, if they're as powerful as you suspect, might be inside, waiting for news of the merchant's death. You need to know if you're still their blade or their next target. You reach the castle's base, its wall towering like a judgmental giant. The stone's rough, offering some grip, but it's slick with moss and years of rain. You test a handhold, your fingers aching from the cold, your daggers tucked at your belt, useless for climbing, and the poison vial, still untested, bounces in your pocket, a quirky tidbit. Some assassins tied bells to their boots to train silent movement, removing them for real jobs. You wish you'd practiced that. Every scrape of your boot sounds like a trumpet in the quiet. You start climbing, muscles straining, heart pounding loud enough to wake the dead. The wall's higher than it looked, maybe 20 feet, and each inch feels like a mile. You find a rhythm, hand over hand, but a loose stone shifts, and you nearly slip, your breath catching. Joke 1. Medieval walls, built to crush dreams and assassins. You cling tighter, sweat mixing with the flour on your face, turning it to paste. The top's closed now, a jagged parapet silhouetted against the sky. You hear voices above, guards joking about a card game, their lanterns casting faint glows. You pause, pressed against the stone, waiting for them to move on. Your arms burn, but letting go isn't an option. You reach the parapet, hauling yourself over with a grunt. You pray no one hears. You crouch behind a merlin, catching your breath. The castle courtyard sprawls below, torchlit and bustling despite the hour. Servants haul water, and armored men patrol, their boots clanking. You spot a tower where the noble might be, its windows glowing faintly. Historians still argue whether castles were impenetrable or just intimidating. And right now, you're betting on the latter. You need to cross the courtyard, find a way inside. But first, you have to get down without breaking your neck. You scan for a descent, spotting a drainage pipe snaking down the wall. It's rusted, probably as reliable as your dagger, but it's your best shot. You swing a leg over the parapet, gripping the pipe, and start sliding down. The metal groans, and you wince, expecting it to snap. It holds, barely, and you land in a shadowed corner of the courtyard. Knees jarring. Joke 2. Assassins don't climb castles. They just flirt with gravity. You duck behind a stack of barrels, the smell of sour wine masking your own sweat. The courtyard's alive with movement. A stable boy leads a horse, and a cook curses over a smoking fire. You need to blend in or find a quieter path. Your torn cloak won't pass muster here. You look like a beggar who wandered into a war zone. You spot a pile of laundry near the kitchen. Maybe a servant's tunic you could steal. You creep toward it, staying low, but a guard's laugh stops you cold. He's close, too close, his lantern swinging as he paces. You press against the barrels, heart hammering, and wait. He passes, and you dart for the laundry. Snatching a rough tunic that smells of grease and onions, you pull it over your cloak, hoping it'll do. The tower's across the courtyard, its door guarded by a man who looks bored but alert. You recall the tavern's intel, Roderick and the guild feud, and wonder if he's tied to the noble inside. You need answers, but first, you need to get past that guard without your disguise failing again. Joke 3. Medieval stealth, where your best cover is smelling like yesterday's stew. You move along the courtyard's edge, sticking to shadows. The castle's walls loom around you, their weight pressing on your nerves. The pipe climb was a gamble, but you're in, and that's something. Your dagger's still at your belt. The poison vial, a grim reminder of the merchant's uncertain fate. You're an assassin, not a hero, and heroes don't survive courtyards like this. You edge closer to the tower, eyes on the guard, praying your stolen tunic holds up better than your last disguise. You're crouched in the shadowed courtyard of York's fortress, the stolen tunic clinging to your skin, its stench of grease and onions, a grim improvement over your tattered cloak. The tower door looms across the cobblestones, its guard yawning but still upright, his spear glinting in the torchlight. You need to slip inside, find out if the merchant's death has sparked chaos or if your client's waiting to tie up loose ends, namely you. But the courtyard's alive with dangers, and none are worse than the snarling hounds pacing near the stables, their eyes glinting like they smell your fear. You're an assassin, trained to kill silently, but dogs don't care about your rusty dagger or your shaky nerves. They'll bark you into a grave if you're not careful. You edge along the courtyard's wall, the stone cold against your back. The hounds, 3 mangy beasts with matted fur, are tethered to a post, but their chains look long enough to reach you. Their growls rumble low, and you freeze, heart thudding. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval castles relied on dogs for security, their keen senses outmatching any guards. These ones look half-starved, which makes them meaner, not weaker. You recall a job in Norwich where a hound's bark cost you a week's pay and nearly your head. You're not repeating that mistake tonight. You scan for a way past. The tower's door is 30 paces away, but the hounds are between you and it, their chains clinking as they shift. Your dagger's useless against them, and the poison vial, still untested from the merchant's job, won't help here. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins carried dried meat soaked in valerian to calm dogs, but you've got nothing but lint and regret in your pockets. You spot a pile of straw near the stables, maybe enough to distract them if you toss it. It's a long shot, but so's everything tonight. Joke 1. Medieval dogs. The only critics who bite before judging. You ease forward, keeping low, the tunic's stench blending with the courtyard's mix of manure and smoke. The hound's ears perk. One lets out a sharp bark, and you drop to a crouch, breath shallow. The guard glances over, but he's too lazy to check, muttering about damned mutts. You wait, muscles tense, until he turns back to his post. The straw's your best bet, but reaching it means crossing open ground. You crawl, belly to the dirt, the cobblestones digging into your knees. A hound snarls, its chain rattling, and you freeze again, cursing your life choices. You make it to the straw, grabbing a handful. It's damp, reeking of horse, but it'll have to do. You toss it toward the far side of the stables, aiming for a barrel to make noise. The straw scatters, hitting the barrel with a soft thud, and the hounds lunge, barking wildly, their chains straining. The guard shouts, stomping toward them, and you seize the moment, darting for the tower. Your boots slip on the cobbles, but you don't stop, heart in your throat. Joke 2. Nothing says stealth like starting a dog riot. You reach the door, pressing against it as the guard curses the hounds into silence. The door's unlocked, a miracle or a trap, and you slip inside, easing it shut. The tower's interior is dim, lit by a single torch on the wall, its smoke stinging your eyes. A spiral stair climbs upward, and muffled voices echo from above, too faint to make out. You're in, but the hound's barks still ring in your ears, a reminder of how close you came to disaster. Historians still argue whether castle defenses relied more on men or beasts, but you're voting for the dogs. They're the real gatekeepers. You catch your breath, the tunic's weight dragging on your shoulders. The merchant's poison, Roderick's name from the tavern, the guild feud. It's all a tangle in your mind, but you push it down. You need to focus, find the noble or their lackey, and get answers. The stairs narrow, its stones worn smooth, and you start climbing, dagger in hand. Each step feels like a gamble. The hound's snarls a grim soundtrack in your memory. You recall that London job, the rat that betrayed you, and how you swore to plan better. Yet here you are, dodging dogs with nothing but straw and desperation. The voices grow clearer. A man and a woman arguing about delays in payment. Could be your client, could be unrelated, but you're too deep to turn back. The torchlight flickers, casting your shadow like a ghost on the wall. Joke 3. Assassins don't fear dogs. They just hate their reviews. You grip the dagger tighter, its rust flaking under your thumb, and keep climbing. The tower's air is thick, smelling of damp stone and old secrets, and you wonder if the merchant's dead yet, or if you've risked everything for nothing. You pause at a landing. The voice is louder now, coming from a door just above. Your tunic's grease stink is overwhelming, but it's kept you alive this far. The hounds are quiet now, but their threat lingers, a reminder that stealth is your only weapon. You're an assassin, not a warrior, and warriors don't survive towers like this. You take another step, the stair creaking softly, and pray the shadows hold you a little longer. You're inside the noble's tower, the spiral stair behind you swallowed by shadows as you press against the cold stone wall. The voices from above have faded, but the air hums with tension, thick with the scent of damp mortar and burning pitch from a flickering torch. You've dodged the hounds and slipped past the guard, But your next task is deadlier. Poisoning a target inside this fortress, the merchant's goblet, laced with that questionable brew, is a gamble you're still waiting to cash. But now you're tasked with another hit, a noble's advisor who stirred trouble for your client. You clutch the same vial of poison, its acrid weight a constant worry in your pocket, and pray it's potent enough to work this time. Timing is everything, and in a castle crawling with eyes, one mistake means a noose. You creep up the final steps, the door ahead cracked open, spilling a sliver of candlelight. Your stolen tunic, reeking of grease, feels like a flimsy shield, but it's all you've got. The advisor's chamber is close. You've heard he drinks late, a habit you can exploit, a mainstream historical fact. Medieval nobles relied on advisors to navigate trade and politics, often making them targets for rivals. This one's crossed someone powerful, maybe the same client who wanted the merchant dead, and you're the blade they've chosen. You ease the door wider, wincing at its faint creak, and slip into a narrow hallway lined with tapestries. The tapestries depict battles, their faded threads a grim reminder of your own stakes. You move silently, boots soft on the rush-strewn floor, the poison vial heavy in your hand. You uncork it, the smell sharp enough to curl your toes, and recall the apothecary's crooked grin when she sold it, a quirky tidbit. Some medieval poisons were brewed with toad venom, believed to stop the heart without a trace. Yours is probably just bad wine and spite, but it's all you've got. You need to find the advisor's wine, slip in a dose, and vanish before anyone notices. Joke 1. Medieval poison, the gift that keeps on killing, or not. The hallway ends at a heavy oak door, slightly ajar, voices murmuring inside. You crouch, peering through the gap. The advisor, a gaunt man with a pointed beard, sits at a table, scribbling on parchment while a servant pours wine from a silver flagon. Perfect, except the servant's hovering, and you need him gone. You wait, heart thudding, as the advisor snaps at the servant to fetch more ink. The boy scurries out, passing so close you smell his sweat. You slip inside, moving like a shadow, and approach the table. The flagon's right there, unguarded, but your hands shake as you tilt the vial. You pour a few drops, the poison blending with the wine's dark red. Too much, and the smell might give it away. Too little, and you're back to square one. You cork the vial, pocketing it, and retreat to the door. Just as the servant returns, you press against the wall, hidden by a tapestry. As he re-enters, oblivious, the advisor lifts the flagon, pouring himself a generous cup, and you hold your breath. Historians still argue whether poison was a common tool for medieval assassinations or just a romantic myth, but you're betting your life on it tonight. He drinks, and you exhale, but it's too soon to celebrate. Poison's slow, and you need to be gone before he clutches his chest, or worse, spits it out. You slip back into the hallway, the rush floor muffling your steps. The tower's quiet, but your nerves scream, every creak a potential alarm. You recall the merchant's goblet, the same shaky gamble, and wonder if you're cursed to repeat these half-baked plans. Joke 2. Assassins don't plan, they just roll dice with death. You head for the stairs, the torchlight dimming as you descend. The advisor's fate is out of your hands now, but the waiting is agony. You need to know if the merchant's job landed, if Roderick's name from the tavern ties to this. But answers are in the castle's heart, not here. You pause at a landing, catching a whiff of the courtyard's manure through an arrow slit. The hound's barks from earlier echo in your mind, a reminder of how thin your luck stretched. You're an assassin, not a gambler, but every job feels like a bad bet. The stair spirals downward, and you move faster, the tunic's weight dragging you down. You're almost at the courtyard when a shout echoes from above, sharp and panicked. Your stomach drops. Did the advisor taste the poison, or is it something else? You don't wait to find out. You bolt for the door, praying the guards still half asleep. Joke 3. Medieval poisoners. Making heart attacks a team sport. You burst into the courtyard, the cold air a slap, and dive behind a stack of crates, heart pounding as the tower's alarm bell starts to toll. You're trapped in a fortress, the poison's slow burn your only weapon, and now the whole castle's waking up. Your dagger's at your belt, the vial's empty threat in your pocket, and the shadows are your last ally. You need to move, find a way out, or you're the next body in the moat. You're crouched behind a stack of crates in the fortress courtyard. The alarm bells clang, cutting through the night like a blade. The advisor's poisoned wine, your handiwork, might have sparked this chaos. Or maybe it's just your luck rotting faster than York's market fish. The air smells of smoke and horse dung, the hounds from earlier barking wildly across the cobblestones. Your grease-soaked tunic clings to your skin, and your rusty dagger feels like a child's toy against the armored guards now swarming the tower. You've been betrayed, not by a client this time, but by another assassin, someone who knew your plan and sold you out. You need to escape this death trap of a castle, and fast, before the noose finds your neck. You peer over the crates, heart hammering. Guards shout orders, their lanterns casting jagged shadows as they fan out. The betrayal stings worse than the cold. You'd heard whispers in the Black Boar about a rival, a snake named Elias who'd kill his own kin for a shilling. He was at the tavern. You're sure now. Those cloaked figures muttering about a blade in the dark weren't talking about you. They were setting you up. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval betrayals were common, with trade guilds and nobles often pitting hired killers against each other to cover their tracks. You're the pawn tonight, and Elias is cashing in. You duck lower, the hound's snarls growing closer. Your escape route, the drainage pipe you slid down, is across the courtyard, but it's swarming with men. You recall the merchant's goblet, another poison job that might have already marked you. And now this. Elias must have tipped the guards, maybe even spiked the advisor's wine himself to frame you. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins left coded marks, like a scratched cross on a wall, to claim their kills. You bet Elias left one tonight, pointing straight at you. Joke 1. Medieval teamwork, where your partner's the one holding the knife. You need a diversion. The stables, where the hounds are chained, are your best shot. If you can cut their tethers, they'll scatter the guards like rats. You crawl along the courtyard's edge, the crates splintered wood snagging your tunic. A guard passes close, his lantern swinging, and you press into the dirt, breath shallow. He moves on, muttering about filthy curs, and you seize the chance, darting toward the stables. The hounds spot you, their barks deafening, but you're counting on their chaos. You reach their post, drawing your dagger, its rusty blade barely cutting the rope. The hounds break free, lunging into the courtyard, and the guards shout, scrambling to corral them. You bolt for the pipe, legs burning. The bells toll, drowning your gasps. You grab the pipe, its rust flaking under your palms, and climb, muscles screaming. A hound snaps at your heels, missing by inches, and you haul yourself up, heart in your throat. Joke 2. Nothing says escape like a dog auditioning for your obituary. You reach the parapet, collapsing behind a merlon, chest heaving as the courtyard erupts below. You're not safe yet. The wall you scaled to get in is your only way out, but it's a long drop. and guards are already climbing the tower stairs. Historians still argue whether assassins worked alone or in networks, but Elias's betrayal proves you can't trust either way. You spot a rope coiled near a winch, likely for hauling supplies. It's your lifeline. If it holds, you tie it to the parapet, tugging to test its strength, and swing over the wall, the rope burning your hands as you slide down. The ground rushes up, and you land hard, knees buckling in the muddy grass outside. You're out, but the castle's gates are opening, guards spilling into the night. You sprint for the city, the river's stench guiding you to its banks. Your tunic's torn, the poison vials empty, and your dagger's all you've got left. You recall the tavern's intel, Roderick's name, and wonder if Elias is tied to him, or if you're just chasing ghosts. Joke 3. Medieval Assassins, where your biggest foe is your own address book. You dive into an alley, the city's maze. Your only shield, but Elias's shadow looms, and you know this isn't over. You're a hunted man now, the fortress's bells fading as York swallows you whole. Your breath's ragged, your nerves shot, but you keep moving, the betrayal a fire in your gut. You need answers, a place to hide, or at least a moment to think before the guards, or Elias, find you. You're stumbling through York's shadowed alleys, the fortress's alarm bells now a faint echo, but the sting of Elias's betrayal burns hotter than ever. The river's stench clings to the air, mingling with the sour sweat soaking your grease-stained tunic. You're a hunted man, the guards likely combing the city for you, and Elias, that snake of an assassin, has turned your world into a trap. You need a moment to breathe, to plan, and the only sanctuary you can think of is the cathedral, its looming spire a dark silhouette against the starless sky. You head there, hoping its sacred walls will shield you, but the weight of your bloody trade presses on your soul, and guilt, usually a stranger, creeps in as you near the church's doors. The streets are quieter here, the city's pulse slowing as you approach the cathedral's grounds. Your boots, caked with mud and worse, squelch on the path, and you pull your torn cloak tighter, hiding the dagger at your belt. The cathedral's stone facade towers above, its gargoyles glaring like they know your sins. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval cathedrals were not just religious centers, but refuges for fugitives, offering sanctuary to those who could reach their altars. You're banking on that now, though you doubt even God's house can wash away the blood on your hands. You slip through a side gate, the iron creaking softly, and enter the churchyard. Inside, the air is cool, heavy with incense and the faint must of old stone. The nave stretches before you, its vaulted ceiling lost in shadow, lit only by flickering votive candles. You duck behind a pillar, your breath ragged, and listen. The cathedral's empty, save for a distant chant. Maybe monks at their midnight prayers. Your heart slows, but the guilt doesn't. You think of the merchant's goblet, the advisor's wine, the lives you've snuffed for coin. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins confessed their kills in secret, slipping notes into church alms boxes, hoping for absolution. You've never tried it, but the idea tugs at you now. You move deeper, the pillar's cold stone grounding you. The poison vial, empty now, feels like a stone in your pocket, a reminder of the advisor's uncertain fate. Elias's betrayal loops in your mind, his smirk in the black boar, a taunt you didn't see coming. You wonder if he's after Roderick's coin, or if the guild feud you overheard is bigger than you thought. You sink to your knees, not in prayer, but exhaustion. The cathedral's silence pressing on you. Joke 1. medieval assassins, confessing to God but dodging the priest's bill. A candle sputters nearby, its wax pooling like spilled blood. You recall your first kill, a debtor in a Bristol alley, his eyes wide as your dagger struck. You were younger, hungrier, and the coin felt like freedom. Now it's just a chain. The cathedral's sanctity feels like a mockery, but you're here, and it's bought you time. You need to plan, to find Elias or Roderick, to unravel who's pulling the strings. Historians still argue whether assassins felt remorse or were just hardened killers. And tonight, you're not sure which you are. You rise, moving toward the altar, its gold cross glinting faintly. You're not devout, but the space demands respect. And you pause, half expecting divine judgment. None comes, just the echo of your own breathing. You spot a side chapel, its Dorage Policia, and slip inside, finding a bench to rest. The guilt's heavier now, not just for the kills, but for the life you've chosen. You think of the hounds, the tavern, the fortress, each a step deeper into this pit. Joke 2. Sanctuary's nice, until you realize you're your own worst demon. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and the cathedral's quiet wraps around you. The merchant's job, the advisor's, Elias's knife in your back. It's a tangle you can't cut through. You need to move soon. The guards won't respect sanctuary forever, and Elias knows you too well. You pat the dagger, its rust a grim comfort, and stand. The bench creaking under you. The chants stopped. The monk's gone, and the cathedral feels emptier, colder. You head for the door, glancing at the cross one last time, half hoping for a sign, half knowing you don't deserve one. Outside, the night's sharper, the city's hum faint but growing. You stick to the churchyard's shadows, the guilt trailing you like a ghost. Joke 3. Medieval cathedrals, where even the gargoyles judge your career choices. You're an assassin, not a penitent. And penitents don't survive nights like this. You need to find Elias, or answers, before the city wakes and your sanctuary becomes a cage. You're back in York's chaotic market square, the cathedral's fleeting sanctuary. A fading memory as you weave through the early dawn crowd. The air reeks of fresh bread and yesterday's fish, a sharp contrast to the incense-soaked calm you left behind. Your grease-stained tunic and torn cloak mark you as trouble, and the weight of Elias's betrayal presses harder than the dagger at your belt. The guards are still hunting you, their shouts echoing from the fortress, and you need to vanish before they tighten the net. The square's a mess of hawkers, carts, and gawkers, perfect for losing a tail but deadly if you're spotted. A sheriff's been sniffing around, his eyes too sharp for your liking, and you're banking on the crowd's chaos to keep you hidden. You pull your hood lower, dodging a cart piled with cabbages. The square's alive, vendors shouting prices while a juggler tosses apples to a cheering knot of children. Your heart's pounding, every face a potential threat. A mainstream historical fact, medieval sheriffs were enforcers of royal law, often doubling as tax collectors and judge, making them feared and hated. This one's no different. His leather jerkin and broadsword screaming authority as he scans the crowd from a wooden platform. You spot him, his gaze lingering too long in your direction, and you duck behind a stall, the scent of smoked herring choking you. You need to move, but the sheriff's presence is a problem. You recall the tavern's intel, Roderick's name tied to a guild feud, and wonder if he's the one who sicked the sheriff on you. Elias's betrayal stings. He's probably laughing with a fresh purse while you dodge death. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins used market distractions, like tipping a cart or starting a brawl, to slip away. You eye a nearby barrel of apples. Tempting but risky. You could knock it over, scatter the crowd, but it'd draw every eye, including the sheriff's. Joke 1. Medieval escapes, where fruit's your only ally, and it still betrays you. You slip behind a weaver's stall, its bolts of cloth offering cover. The sheriff's still on his platform, barking orders to a pair of guards who fan out, their spears glinting. Your tunic's stench blends with the market's chaos, but your face, still dusted with flour from the fortress, is a giveaway. You smear mud from the ground to mask it. Wincing at the grit, the crowd's your shield, but it's thinning as vendors pack up, and you're running out of time. You spot an alley across the square, a narrow escape if you can reach it without being seen. The sheriff steps down, his boots thudding as he moves through the crowd, questioning a baker who points vaguely toward your side of the square. Your pulse spikes, and you crouch lower, pretending to haggle over a loaf you can't afford. The baker's too busy to care, but the sheriff's closing in, his eyes sweeping like a hawk's. You recall the cathedral's quiet, how you almost believed you could outrun this life. Now, with the sheriff's shadow looming, that feels like a cruel jest. Joke 2. Sanctuary's great until the law remembers your name. You edge toward the alley, using a group of drunken apprentices as cover. They're loud, sloshing ale and singing off-key, perfect for masking your steps. But a guard's posted near the alley's mouth, his spear leaning against the wall as he chews a crust. You curse under your breath. The market's chaos, both friend and foe. Historians still argue whether sheriffs hunted assassins with zeal or just for show. But this one's got a glint in his eye that says he means business. You need a distraction, something subtler than a barrel of apples. You spot a stray dog sniffing near a fishmonger's stall, its ribs sharp under matted fur. You toss a pebble, aiming for a pile of fish guts, and the dog lunges, knocking over a basket. The fishmonger bellows, the crowd laughs, and the guard at the alley turns to look. You seize the moment, slipping past him into the alley's shadows, your breath ragged. Joke 3. Medieval dogs, saving your hide one stink at a time. The alley's narrow, its walls slick with grime, but it's freedom. For now, you're not safe yet. The sheriff's voice carries, ordering a sweep of the square, and you know he's not giving up. Elias's knife, the merchant's poison, the advisor's wine. It's all a noose tightening around you. You need to find Roderick, or Elias, or some shred of truth before the city chews you up. The alley leads to a quieter street, where the market's hum fades, but the danger doesn't. You're an assassin, not a ghost, and ghosts don't survive mornings like this. You're deep in a grimy alley off York's Market Square, the sheriff's shouts fading but still too close for comfort. The air reeks of rotting straw and something sharper, maybe a tannery nearby, and your grease-soaked tunic clings like a second skin. The cathedral's brief sanctuary and the market's chaos feel like distant dreams, replaced by the cold reality of being hunted. Elias's betrayal burns in your gut, and the merchant's poisoned goblet, the advisor's tainted wine, and Roderick's shadowy name are a tangle you can't cut through. You need a moment to think, and as you lean against a damp wall, your mind drifts to the brutal training that forged you into this shadow of a killer, a past that explains why you're here, dodging death for a handful of coin. You were barely 15, a scrawny orphan in a Bristol slum, when a man named Thorne plucked you from the streets. He wasn't kind. His eyes were cold as flint, but he offered food and a purpose, and you were too hungry to say no. Training started in a crumbling warehouse by the docks, where you learned to move silently, to strike fast, and to bury any shred of mercy. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval assassins, though rare, were often trained in secrecy, sometimes by rogue knights or disgraced mercenaries who saw profit in molding desperate souls. Thorn was the latter, a man who'd fought in France and came back with more scars than honor. You remember the first lesson, balancing on a beam while Thorn swung a stick at your knees. Fall, and you ate dirt. Stay up, and you got a crust of bread. You fell a lot, your shins bruised black, but hunger was a sharp teacher. By 16, you could cross a room without a sound, your footsteps lighter than a cat's. You recall the night Thorn made you climb a rotting pier in a storm, the wood slick with seaweed, your fingers bleeding as you clung on. Joke 1. Medieval training, where the only diploma is surviving the teacher. The alley's quiet, but you check over your shoulder. The sheriff's men could be anywhere. Your dagger, rusty as ever, is a grim reminder of those early days when you sharpened sticks because Thorn wouldn't trust you with steel. He taught you to kill with anything, a blade, a cord, even your hands. You practiced on sacks of grain, then pigs, their squeals haunting your dreams. The first human target came at 17, a debtor who begged as you hesitated. Thorn's voice in your head, coin or cowardice, pushed your hand, and you've been running from that moment ever since. You shake off the memory, moving deeper into the alley. Training wasn't just physical. Thorn drilled the code into you. Never ask. Always an exit. Trust no one. Elias must have trained under someone like Thorn. His betrayal feels like a lesson you should have seen coming, a quirky tidbit. Some trainers blindfolded their students, making them navigate by sound alone, a skill you wish you had now as a cart rumbles nearby. Masking potential footsteps. You pause, listening, but it's just a late-night peddler, oblivious to your world. Your training included poisons, though Thorn scoffed at them, a coward's crutch. He made you taste diluted hemlock once, to know its burn, and your throat stung for days. The vial you used on the merchant and advisor, that murky sludge from the apothecary, feels like a betrayal of Thorn's lessons. You wonder if it worked, or if you're just a fool leaving bodies that won't stay dead. Historians still argue whether assassins were elite operatives or desperate thugs, and you lean toward the latter. Your training was less about skill and more about breaking you into something useful. You reach the alley's end, a quiet street stretching toward the river. Your legs ache, a ghost of those endless nights running laps under Thorn's whip. He taught you to endure, to shut out pain, but not guilt. That's your own burden. You think of the cathedral, the cross glinting in the dark, and how it stirred something you thought Thorn killed. Joke 2. Assassins don't get nostalgia, just scars with stories. You need to keep moving. Find Elias or Roderick, but the training's weight slows you. Each step a reminder of the boy you buried to become this. A shout echoes. Guards, maybe, and you duck behind a barrel, heart racing. Thorn's voice sneers in your mind. Hide better or die. You do, pressing into the shadows. The barrels stink of sour wine, a grim comfort. Joke 3. Medieval training, turning you into a rat with a dagger. You're an assassin, not a hero, and heroes don't survive alleys like this. You need to unravel this mess before Elias's knife or the sheriff's noose ends your story. You're crouched behind a barrel in a dank York alley, the river's stench seeping through the cracks of your hiding spot as the echo of distant guards fades. Your training's ghosts, Thorn's brutal lessons, still linger, but there's no time to dwell. The sheriff's men are closing in. Elias's betrayal has painted a target on your back, and the merchants' and advisors' poisoned fates remain question marks. You need to move, and fast. But a new threat looms. Your client, a noble whose cold demands have just reached you through a coded note slipped under a tavern door last night. You're to kill again, a target tied to Roderick's guild feud. And the order chills you, not for its danger, but for the moral line it forces you to cross. You're an assassin, not a monster. But the noble's words leave no room for doubt. Obey, or become the hunted. You slip from the alley, sticking to the shadows of a quiet street near the city's edge. The note, now crumpled in your pocket, was clear. The target is a guildmaster, a man whose influence threatens your client's trade empire. You don't know his name, just a location, a manor beyond the walls, and a deadline. Dawn. Your rusty dagger and empty poison vial are all you've got, and the weight of this job feels heavier than any before. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval nobles often used assassins to settle trade disputes, bypassing courts to keep their hands clean. Your client's no different. Their wealth built on wool and blood, and you're their blade. For now, you head toward the city gate, the manor's direction, keeping low. The street's empty, save for a stray cat darting across your path, its eyes glinting like a bad omen. The noble's note wasn't just a command, it was a warning. Fail, and your name joins the dead. You've never met them, just their messenger. A hooded figure with a voice like gravel, you recall the Black Boar's whispers. Roderick's name tied to a guild feud, and wonder if this guildmaster is him. The thought twists your gut. Killing a man you've only heard of feels like stepping into a trap. Joke 1. Medieval bosses, where the job description is always die trying. You reach the gate, its wooden bulk guarded by a single man dozing against his spear. You slip past, hugging the wall, the night's chill biting through your torn cloak. The manor's a mile out, surrounded by fields, and you'll need to move fast to scout it before dawn. Your training kicks in. Thorn's voice barking to keep your steps light, your eyes sharp. But the noble's order gnaws at you. This isn't a debtor or a rival. It's a man with a family, a life, and you're not sure you can stomach it. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins left tokens, like a coin on the body, to mark their kills for clients. You've never bothered. But tonight, you wish you had something to leave behind. Maybe a plea instead of a boast. The road to the manor is rutted, your boots sinking into mud. You think of the cathedral, its fleeting peace, and how you almost believed you could walk away. This job says otherwise. The guildmaster's death will ripple, maybe spark a war between traders, and you'll be the spark, not the hero. Historians still argue whether assassins were pawns or power brokers, and you feel like the former, a tool sharpened by thorn and wielded by nobles. You pause, catching your breath. The manor's silhouette faint against the horizon. It's grand, stone-walled, a fortress for a man who doesn't know his hours are numbered. You scout the perimeter, staying low in the tall grass. The manor's quiet, no guards visible, but that's no comfort. Your dagger's rust flakes under your grip, a grim reminder of your limits. The noble's note promised coin, enough to vanish, but you've heard those lies before. You recall Elias, his smirk in the tavern, and wonder if he's after this job too, ready to bury you for the payout. Joke 2. Medieval loyalty, where your best friend's the one with the sharpest knife. You find a side gate, its lock rusted but sturdy. You could pick it, but your hands shake. not from cold but from doubt. Killing the guildmaster feels like crossing a line you can't uncross. A step from assassin to something darker. You think of the merchant, the advisor, their faces blurring into one. The noble's demand is clear, but your soul's not. Joke 3. Medieval morals. The only thing heavier than a bad dagger, you're an assassin, not a saint. And saints don't survive manners like this. You need to decide. Act or run before dawn breaks and the choice is made for you. You're crouched in the tall grass outside the guildmaster's manor, the noble's chilling order to kill him burning in your mind like a fever. Dawn's creeping closer, and York's city walls are a distant shadow behind you, their guards likely still hunting for the chaos you left at the fortress. Your grease-stained tunic is damp with dew, and your rusty dagger, clutched tightly, feels like a taunt against the manor's stone walls. Elias's betrayal and the uncertainty of the merchants and advisors' poisoned fates weigh heavy, but the noble's note, now a crumpled weight in your pocket, demands action. To reach the guildmaster, you'll need to infiltrate the manor, and the only way in is through a reeking sewer grate you've spotted near the perimeter. The smell alone could kill you, but it's your only shot, and you're running out of time. You slink toward the grate, the grass whispering under your boots. The manor looms, its windows dark except for a faint glow in an upper chamber, likely the guildmaster's. The sewer's stench hits you first, a gut punch of rot and filth that makes your eyes water, a mainstream historical fact. Medieval sewers were little more than open channels, carrying waste to rivers and making them prime, if disgusting, entry points for thieves and killers like you. You kneel beside the grate, its iron bars slimy with moss, and tug. It's heavy, but it shifts, the screech of metal muffled by the night's quiet. You peer into the darkness below, the air thick with a sour tang that clings to your throat. Your dagger's useless here, and the empty poison vial in your pocket is a bitter reminder of your earlier gambles. You recall the fortress hounds, the market's chaos, and how each escape pushed you closer to this moment. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins used wax plugs in their noses to block sewer smells, a trick you wish you'd known before this stench started rewriting your sinuses. You take a shallow breath, steel yourself, and lower into the sewer, the cold muck soaking your boots instantly. Joke 1. Medieval sewers, where the real assassin is the smell. The tunnel's tight, its walls slick with slime that squelches under your hands. You crawl, the darkness absolute, guided only by the faint gurgle of water and the hope you're moving toward the manor. Your tunic snags on a jagged stone, tearing further, and you curse silently. The noble's order, kill or be killed, echoes in your head, but the guildmaster's face, unknown to you, feels too human. You think of the cathedral, its fleeting peace, and wonder if you're crawling toward damnation. The sewer's air is a weight, each breath a battle, and you fight the urge to gag. You spot a faint light ahead, a grate above leading to the manor's underbelly. You pause, listening for guards, but hear only dripping water and your own ragged breathing. Historians still argue whether sewers were viable entry points or just desperate last resorts. And right now, you're leaning toward the latter. You reach the grate, pushing gently, and it lifts, revealing a storage cellar. Barrels and sacks line the walls, the air heavy with mold and grain. You climb out, dripping filth, and crouch behind a barrel, the sewers stink clinging to you like a curse. The cellar's quiet, but the manor's alive above, faint footsteps echoing through the floor. You need to find the guildmaster's chamber, slip in, and finish the job before dawn. Your dagger's rust flakes under your grip, a grim reminder of your limits. You recall Elias's smirk, the tavern's whispers of Roderick, and wonder if this kill is their trap, not the nobles. Joke 2. Medieval jobs, where the only promotion is a deeper grave. You move to a wooden stair, its steps creaking under your weight, and ascend. The manor's warmth, a stark contrast to the sewer's chill. You reach a hallway, its walls hung with tapestries that smell of dust and wealth. A servant's laugh drifts from a distant room, and you freeze, pressing against the wall. The guildmaster's chamber is close. You feel it, but so's the risk. You think of Thorn's training, his sneer when you hesitated, and push forward. The noble's note. A chain around your heart. Joke 3. Sewers and morals. Both stink when you're an assassin. You're no hero, and heroes don't survive manners like this. You need to act before the guildmaster wakes or Elias's shadow finds you first. You're creeping through the guildmaster's manor, the hallway's tapestries muffling your steps as you shake off the sewer's clinging stench. The noble's order to kill the guildmaster weighs like a millstone, and the uncertainty of the merchants' and advisors' poisoned fates gnaws at you, matched only by Elias's betrayal lurking in every shadow. Dawn's close, its gray light seeping through a window, and you're running out of time to finish this job. Hunger gnaws at your gut, a sharp reminder you haven't eaten since that stale bread days ago, and now you're stuck waiting in this manor, hiding in a cramped pantry off the kitchen, praying for the perfect moment to strike. Starvation's your enemy as much as the guards, and the weight is shredding your nerves. The pantry smells of dried herbs and old flour, a cruel tease for your empty stomach. You're wedged between sacks of grain, your grease-soaked tunic blending with the dust, the rusty dagger clutched in your sweating hand. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval households, even wealthy ones, often faced food shortages, with famine a constant threat for all but the richest nobles. You're no noble, and the hunger's real, your head light and limbs heavy as you listen for movement outside. The guildmaster's chamber is upstairs. You've scouted the route, but servants bustle in the kitchen, and you can't move until they clear out. You shift, the sacks rustling, and catch a whiff of bread baking nearby. Your mouth waters, but stealing food means risking noise, and you're already on edge. You recall the sewer's filth, the fortress hounds, and how each scrape pushed you here, starving and cornered. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins chewed leather to dull hunger during long stakeouts, a trick you're tempted to try with your belt. Your stomach growls, loud enough to make you wince, and you press a hand to it, willing it silent. Joke 1. Medieval diets, where starvation's just part of the job description. The kitchen's noise dips, a servant's footsteps fading toward the hall. You peer through a crack in the pantry door, seeing only a flickering hearth and a table strewn with dough scraps. The temptation to grab something is fierce, but you hold back. Thorn's training echoing. A full belly slows your blade. You think of Elias, his betrayal a fresh wound, and wonder if he's eating well on your coin. The noble's note, kill or be killed, sits heavy, and the guildmaster's face, still unknown, feels too human to ignore. You're not sure you can do this, not with your soul already fraying. You wait, the hunger, a dull ache now, your vision blurring at the edges, the manners quieting, the servants likely retiring. But the guildmaster's guards might still patrol. You recall the Black Boar's intel, Roderick's name tied to a guild feud, and wonder if this kill is his revenge or the noble's power play. Historians still argue whether assassins were driven by greed or desperation, and you're leaning toward the latter, your empty stomach a grim vote. You need to move soon. The perfect moment won't wait forever, but your body's betraying you. Each breath a battle against weakness. A servant enters the kitchen, humming, and you freeze. The daggers rust gritty under your thumb. She grabs a tray and leaves, the door swinging shut, and you seize the chance. Slipping out of the pantry, the kitchen's warm, the breads scent torture, but you ignore it. Heading for the stairs, your legs wobble, hunger sapping your strength, and you grip the wall, steadying yourself. Joke 2. Assassins don't faint. They just take unscheduled naps. You climb, each step a fight. The manners silence both ally and threat. You reach the upper hall, its walls hung with portraits that seem to judge you. The guildmaster's chamber is close. You're crouched in a shadowed corner of the guildmaster's manor. The crawl space is dust, still clogging your throat as you shake off the crow assassin's near miss. The guildmaster's chamber is just down the hall. The nobles order to kill him. A relentless drumbeat, but the crow's threat. Elias's guild hunting you turns every step into a gamble. Your grease-soaked tunic is tattered, your rusty dagger barely a weapon, and the empty poison vial in your pocket mocks your earlier failures with the merchant and advisor. Now you're facing a new disaster. The manor's lock you need to pick to reach the guildmaster is old, rusted, and stubborn, and your clumsy attempt triggers an alarm, sending your heart into a panic as the manor wakes around you. You approach the chamber door, its iron lock glinting in the candlelight like a taunt. The hall's quiet, but the crows could be anywhere, and the noble's deadline dawn is closer than ever. You kneel, pulling a bent wire from your belt. A poor excuse for a lockpick, but all you've got. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval locks were crude, often just iron bolts. But manors like this used complex wards to protect the wealthy, making your job a nightmare. You insert the wire, feeling for the tumblers, but your hands shake hunger, fear, and the manor's chill conspiring against you. The lock resists, its mechanism gritty with rust. You recall Thorne's training, his sneer as he made you pick a dozen locks blindfolded. But this one's older, meaner. You twist the wire, and it snaps, the sharp crack echoing like a gunshot. Your stomach drops as a bell clangs somewhere above, shrill and insistent. The manor's alarm screaming your presence, a quirky tidbit. Some manors rigged bells to locks, a primitive trap for thieves and killers like you. You curse, the broken wire useless, and scramble to your feet, the dagger in hand as footsteps thunder from the stairs. Joke 1. Medieval locks, picking your pride before your freedom. You dive behind a tapestry, its musty weave shielding you as guards burst into the hall, their swords drawn. Lanterns swinging. They're shouting, "Intruder," and you know the crows aren't far behind. Elias is guild-smelling blood. The guildmaster's door is so close, but it's a fortress now, and you've just painted yourself as the enemy. You think of the sewer, the hounds, the market, each escape a miracle you're running out of. The noble's note, "Kill or be killed," feels like a cruel jest, and you wonder if the guildmaster's even worth it, or if Roderick's feud is just another trap. The guards split up, one heading your way, his boots heavy on the rush-strewn floor. You press deeper into the tapestry, its weight suffocating, and pray he doesn't look too close. Historians still argue whether manor alarms were effective or just panicked the household, but this one's working. The bell still ringing as more voices join the fray. You need an out, the window at the hall's end. Your only hope, but it's a long drop, and the guards are too close. You recall the cathedral's peace, how it almost convinced you to run, but you're too deep now. A rat in a maze, you slip from the tapestry, darting for the window as the guard turns away. Your boots skid, the floor slick with wax, and you nearly fall, the dagger clattering against your hip. Joke 2. Assassins don't trip, they just dance with death. You reach the window, its latch stiff but yielding under your desperate tug. The night air hits you, cold and sharp, and you peer down a 2-story drop to a courtyard. Maybe survivable if you aim for the hay cart below. The guard's shouts grow louder, and you hear a new voice, colder, maybe a crow's. You climb onto the sill, heart hammering, and leap, the wind rushing past as you hit the hay, the impact jarring your bones. You roll off, gasping, and scramble behind a barrel. The manor's bell still screaming, the courtyard's dark, but lanterns are moving, guards spilling out. Joke 3. Medieval alarms, waking everyone except your luck. You're alive, barely, but the crows, the noble, and Elias's shadow are closing in. You need to vanish, find answers, or at least survive until dawn. Tears this nightmare apart. You're sprawled behind a barrel in the manor's courtyard, the hay cart's rough landing still rattling your bones. As the alarm bell's clang fades into the pre-dawn chill, the guild master's chamber, so close yet unreachable, taunts you. The noble's order to kill him now, a distant echo against the crow's pursuit, and Elias's betrayal. Your grease-soaked tunic is shredded, the rusty dagger at your belt. A frail ally, and the empty poison vial in your pocket. A reminder of the merchants' and advisors' uncertain fates. The manor's guards are swarming, lanterns bobbing like fireflies, but it's the nightmares haunting you. Flashbacks of past kills that threaten to unravel your focus before this critical job. Each memory is a ghost, sharp and unyielding, and they're clawing at you as you fight to stay sharp. You press against the barrel, its sour wine stench grounding you as you catch your breath. The courtyard's chaos masks your presence, but your mind betrays you, dragging you back to Bristol years ago. Your first kill under Thorne's cold gaze, the debtor's eyes, wide with terror, still burn in your memory, his plea cut short by your blade. You were 17, hungry, and thought the coin would silence the guilt. It didn't. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval assassins, often young and desperate, were shaped by a brutal world where survival trumped morality. You're living proof, but the weight of those early kills is heavier now, each one a brick in your crumbling resolve. Another memory hits. A woman in London, a smuggler who crossed the wrong merchant. You poisoned her ale, watched her choke, and fled before her last breath. The tavern's laughter that night haunts you, a cruel contrast to her silence. You shake your head, forcing yourself back to the manor, but the flashbacks keep coming. Each kill a cut you can't stitch. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins kept tallies, carving notches into belts or blades to track their jobs. You never did. The faces are tally enough, and they're crowding your mind as you crouch. The guard's shouts growing closer. You peer over the barrel, spotting a stable across the courtyard. Its shadows a possible escape. The noble's note, kill or be killed, feels like a chain, but the guild master's death is a line you're not sure you can cross, not with these ghosts screaming. You think of Elias, his betrayal a fresh wound, and wonder if he's haunted too, or if he's just better at burying it. Joke 1. Medieval nightmares, where your past picks the worst time to visit. You need to move. The guards are closing in, and the crows Elias's guild could be watching, waiting for you to falter. You dart for the stable, keeping low, the grass slick under your boots. A guard's lantern swings close, and you drop behind a trough, heart pounding. The flashbacks surge again. A job in York last year, a trader who begged for his son. You hesitated, and Thorne's voice in your head pushed the blade. The guilt's a knife now, twisting as you huddle in the manor's shadow. Historians still argue whether assassins were cold machines or broken souls, and you're leaning toward the latter. Your nightmares prove you're not as dead inside as you pretend. You reach the stable, its hay-scented darkness a brief refuge. The horses snort, sensing your tension, and you crouch behind a stall, the guards' voices fading. You grip the dagger, its rust flaking like your nerves, and try to focus. The guildmaster's upstairs. The crows are out there, and Roderick's name from the black boar is a thread you can't pull. The flashbacks won't stop. Each kill a wait, and you wonder if the cathedral's peace was your last chance to run. Joke 2. Assassins don't dream. They just relive their worst reviews. A guard enters the stable, his lantern casting jagged shadows. You hold your breath, the dagger ready, but he's just checking the horses, muttering about damned bells. He leaves, and you exhale, the nightmares circling like vultures. You need to finish this job or flee, but the ghosts are loud, and the manor's noose is tightening. Joke 3. Medieval guilt. The only thing sharper than a bad blade, you're an assassin, not a hero. And heroes don't survive stables like this. You slip out, heading for the manor's wall, praying the shadows hold you before you're past. Or the crows drag you under. You're slinking along the guildmaster's manor wall, the stable's fleeting cover behind you as dawn's gray light creeps over York's fields. The alarm bell's echo lingers, matched by the ghosts of past kills still clawing at your mind. Each memory a reminder of the blood you've spilled for coin. Your grease-soaked tunic is a tattered ruin, the rusty dagger at your belt. A frail defense, and the empty poison vial in your pocket, a mocking relic of the merchants' and advisors' uncertain fates. Elias's betrayal and the crow's pursuit have turned you into prey, but now you're staring at a new horror, a public execution in the manor's courtyard, where a traitor's head rolls, a grim warning of what awaits if you fail the noble's order to kill the guildmaster. The sight shakes you, and you need to move before the manor's guards add you to the block. The courtyard's a grim stage, lit by flickering torches, as a small crowd servants, guards, and a grim-faced noble watches the executioner's axe fall. The traitor, a hooded figure, slumps, blood pooling on the cobblestones, and the crowd's silence is heavier than any shout. You're hidden behind a low wall, the manor's shadow. Your only shield, but the scene hits like a fist, a mainstream historical fact. Medieval executions were public spectacles, meant to deter crime and reinforce power, often drawing crowds eager for justice or gore. This one's private, a manor affair, but the message is clear: cross the wrong people, and you're next. You grip the dagger, its rust flaking under your thumb, and fight the urge to bolt. The noble's note: kill the guildmaster or join the dead, feels like a prophecy now. The executioner's axe, a preview of your fate. You recall the cathedral's peace, the market's chaos, and how each escape led to this moment, staring at death's stage. A quirky tidbit: some executioners offered victims a coin to ease their soul, a grim courtesy you doubt this one bothered with. The crowd disperses, the noble barking orders, and you catch a glimpse of his face hard, lined, maybe your client. Joke 1. Medieval justice. Where the only appeal is a sharp blade, you need to move. The guildmaster's chamber is inside, but the courtyard's crawling with guards, their lanterns sweeping the shadows. The execution's over, but its weight lingers, stirring the ghosts of your own kills. Bristol, London, York. Faces you can't outrun. Elias's betrayal burns, the crows likely watching from the darkness, and you wonder if Roderick, the tavern's whispered name, is tied to this noble. You slip along the wall, aiming for a side door you spotted earlier. Its lock hopefully less stubborn than the last. Your boots squish in the mud. The manor's stench a mix of blood and damp stone. A guard's lantern swings close, and you drop to the grass, heart hammering. He pauses, muttering about damned rats, and moves on. Oblivious, you exhale. The execution's image seared into your mind. Historians still argue whether public executions deterred crime or just fed fear. But tonight, fear's winning. Your nerves frayed to breaking. You reach the door. It's wood-warped but unlocked. A rare stroke of luck. You slip inside, the manor's warmth a stark contrast to the courtyard's chill, and find yourself in a servant's passage, narrow and dim. The passage smells of wax and old rushes, the guildmaster's chamber not far now. You move quickly, the dagger your only anchor, but the execution's shadow follows, a reminder of the noose waiting if you fail. You think of the black boar, Roderick's name, and how this job feels like a trap. Elias's guild tightening the screws. Joke 2. Assassins don't fear death. They just hate the paperwork. You need to kill the guildmaster or run, but the axe's glint says running might not be enough. The passage ends at a stair leading up, and you climb. Each step a battle against the fear gnawing your gut. A servant's voice echoes nearby, and you freeze, pressing against the wall. They pass, carrying a tray, and you slip forward. The chamber's door in sight. The execution's wait. The noble's threat and Elias's knife form a storm you can't outrun. Joke 3. Medieval endings, where the only happy ones for the axe. You're an assassin, not a corpse, and corpses don't survive manners like this. You need to act before the guildmaster wakes or the crow's blades or that executioner's axe find you first. You're inches from the guildmaster's chamber door, the manor's dim hallway closing in like a trap as the execution's grim echo. The traitor's head rolling in the courtyard still pulses in your mind. Your grease-soaked tunic is a tattered rag, the rusty dagger at your belt. A frail defense, and the noble's order to kill the guildmaster feels like a death sentence. For him or you, Elias's betrayal and the crow's pursuit have turned you into prey, and now your latest gamble with poison, meant for the guildmaster, has backfired horribly, tainting a servant's wine instead and sparking chaos that threatens to expose you. The manor's awake, voices rising downstairs, and you're cornered, with no time to fix this mess before the guards or the crows find you. You press against the wall, the chamber door's carved oak taunting you, its lock unyielding from your earlier attempt. You'd planned to slip poison into the guildmaster's bedside flagon, using the last drops of that cursed apothecary's brew, but a servant grabbed the wrong cup during a kitchen rush, and now she's retching somewhere below, her cries drawing every guard in the manor. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval poisons were notoriously unreliable, often sickening rather than killing, especially when brewed by shady apothecaries for desperate killers like you. Your empty vial, tossed in panic, is gone, and the dagger's all you've got left. The hallway's air is thick with wax and fear, your heart hammering as footsteps thud closer. You recall the execution's axe, the noble's note, kill or be killed, and how this botched poison has doomed you. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins laced their poisons with sugar to mask the taste. but yours was all bitterness, and now an innocence paying for it. You think of the cathedral's peace, the market's chaos, and how each step led to this disaster. Joke 1. Medieval poisons, where the only thing dead is your career. You need to move. The chamber's your goal, but the servants' cries are a beacon, and you're the target. You slip into an alcove, a tapestry's dust choking you as you listen. Guards shout downstairs, "Poison, fetch the physician," and you curse your stupidity. The guildmaster's chamber is so close, but the manor's alive now, every door a threat. You think of Elias, his smirk in the Black Boar, and wonder if the crows planned this, setting you up to fail. Roderick's name, the guild feud, swirls in your mind, but it's the servant's retching that cuts deepest, a mistake you can't undo. Historians still argue whether assassins targeted only the powerful or let innocents bleed. And tonight, you're the worst of both. You peek out, the hallway clear for now, and dart toward the chamber door. Your dagger's rust flakes under your grip, a grim reminder of your limits. You try the lock again, your bent wire long gone, and it holds fast. Mocking you, a servant's scream echoes, closer, and you know the guards are coming. You recall the fortress hounds, the sewer's filth, and how each escape pushed you here. A fool who poisoned the wrong cup. Joke 2. Assassins don't miss. They just redecorate with chaos. You need an out. The window at the hall's end. Your only hope. But it's another drop, and your bones are already bruised. You sprint for the window. The manor's shouts growing louder. The latch gives. The night air cold and sharp. And you peer down a 3-story plunge to a muddy yard. No hay to break your fall. Guards' lanterns bob below, drawn by the servants' cries. And you're trapped. You think of the Black Boar, Roderick's whispers, and how this job feels like a noose Elias tied. The noble's order is a death wish now. The guildmaster alive while you're the one hunted. Joke 3. Medieval mistakes, where your poison's the only thing with a social life. You're an assassin, not a savior, and saviors don't survive manners like this. You need to jump or fight before the guards or the crows carve your name into the dawn. You're perched on the guildmaster's manor window ledge, the 3-story drop to the muddy yard below, a grim promise as the poisoned servants' cries echo through the halls. The manor's alive with guards, their lanterns flashing like angry stars, and your botched poison job has turned you into York's most wanted. Your grease-soaked tunic is a shredded ruin, the rusty dagger at your belt. A pathetic shield, and the noble's order to kill the guildmaster feels like a curse, now that Elias's crows are hunting you. Worse, the target you're now tasked to kill is no stranger. It's a friend, a fellow assassin named Mara, who's crossed the noble's paths. Loyalty shatters as you grapple with the order, the weight of her name heavier than any blade, and you're trapped, with no time to reconcile before the manor's chaos swallows you. You grip the ledge, the cold stone biting your fingers as you scan the yard. Guards shout below, drawn by the servants' retching, and you know the crows aren't far. Elias's guild tightening their net, a mainstream historical fact. Medieval assassins often formed loose alliances, sharing safe houses or intel, but betrayal was common when coin or survival was at stake. Mara was your ally once, splitting a job in London, her laugh sharp as her knife. Now, the noble's note scrawled with her name demands her death, and the thought twists your gut like bad ale. You recall the execution's axe, the poisoned servant, and wonder if this is your punishment. The window's your only out, but the drop's a gamble. and Mara's face haunts you. You shared a fire with her, swapped stories of Thorn's training, and now you're meant to end her. The manor's hall behind you hums with footsteps, guards closing in, and you need to move. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins used coded signals, like a whistled tune, to warn allies of danger. You half wish you could whistle for Mara now, but she's the target, not the savior. Joke 1. Medieval friends, where the only thing closer than a hug is a knife. You leap, aiming for a pile of straw near the yard's edge, and hit hard, the impact jarring your knees. You roll behind a cart, mud soaking your tunic, and catch your breath. The guards haven't seen you. They're focused on the manor's doors, but the crows could be anywhere. You think of the Black Boar, Roderick's name, and how Mara might be tied to the guild feud. A pawn like you. The noble's order feels like a trap. Elias's betrayal its trigger, and Mara's the bait. You need to find her, warn her, or kill her, and none of those options feel right. You slip toward the manor's outer wall, the dawn's light exposing you. Mara's face flashes her crooked grin, her quick blade, and you falter. She saved you once, pulling you from a botched job in Bristol, and now you're her executioner. Historians still argue whether assassins valued loyalty or saw it as a weakness, and you're torn. Loyalty a chain you can't break. You spot a gate, half hidden by ivy, and dart for it. The guard's shouts growing louder. The gate's unlocked, a stroke of luck, and you slip through, finding a narrow path to the fields. The path's muddy, your boots sinking as you run, Mara's name a weight. You recall the cathedral's peace, the execution's horror, and how each step pushed you here. A killer questioning his trade. The noble's note promised coin, but killing Mara feels like selling your soul. Joke 2. Medieval loyalty, where your heart's the only thing you can't stab. You need to find her, maybe in York's underbelly, but the crows are out there, and Elias knows your moves. You pause, catching your breath. The manor's chaos fading behind you. A twig snaps nearby, and you spin, dagger raised, but it's just a fox, its eyes glinting before it vanishes. Your nerves are shot. Mara's fate a knot you can't untie. The fields stretch toward the city, where answers or death wait. Joke 3. Medieval friends, the only ones who make you miss your enemies. You're an assassin, not a brother, and brothers don't survive fields like this. You need to choose Mara's life or yours before the crows. The noble or your own guilt cuts you down. You're sprinting across the muddy fields outside the guildmaster's manor, dawn's pale light exposing you as York's skyline looms in the distance. The noble's order to kill Mara, your friend and fellow assassin, twists like a blade in your chest, while the botched poison job on the servant and the crow's pursuit led by Elias's betrayal have turned you into a hunted man. Your grease-soaked tunic is a shredded mess, the rusty dagger at your belt, a frail comfort, and the empty poison vial long discarded. Now, after slipping away from the manor's chaos, you're caught in a desperate rooftop chase across York's slums, pursued by guards who've tracked you from the botched job. The city's roofs are your battleground, and one misstep means a fall or a sword. You've scrambled onto a tavern's slanted roof, the tiles slick with moss and morning dew. The guards, 3 of them, are below, their shouts echoing as they climb a ladder to follow. You leap to the next roof, a butcher's shop, its shingles creaking under your weight. A mainstream historical fact. Medieval cities like York had tightly packed buildings, their rooftops a maze for thieves and fugitives, often used to evade capture. You're no thief, but you're running like one, the guards' chainmail clinking as they gain ground. Mara's face haunts you, the noble's note. kill her or die a chain you can't break. You skid across the tiles, nearly slipping, and grab a chimney, its bricks warm from a fire below. The guards are on the tavern roof now, one loosing an arrow that whistles past your ear. Your heart hammers, the chase a blur of fear and instinct. A quirky tidbit, some assassins trained on rooftops, balancing on beams to master agility, a skill you wish you'd practiced more as a tile cracks underfoot. You leap again, landing on a baker's roof, the smell of fresh bread. A cruel jab at your hunger. Joke 1. Medieval chases, where the only prize is not dying, the guards shout, "Stop, Kura," but you don't, weaving between chimneys as another arrow thuds into a shingle. You think of the manor, the execution's axe, and how Mara's name turned this job into a nightmare. Elias's crows are out there, maybe watching, waiting for you to fall. You need to lose the guards, find Mara, or vanish before the noble's wrath or the crow's blades catches up. Historians still argue whether rooftop chases were common or just romanticized tales, but the ache in your leg says this one's real. You spot a lower roof, a tanner's shop, and jump, the drop jarring your knees. You roll, scrambling behind a dormer as the guards clamber across the gap. One slips, cursing, and you seize the moment, darting to the roof's edge. A narrow alley below offers escape, but it's a long drop, and a guard's too close, his sword gleaming. You recall the black boar, Roderick's name, and wonder if he's the noble's pawn or Elias's master. The chase is shredding your focus. Mara's grin a ghost you can't outrun. Joke 2. Assassins don't run. They just audition for the city's worst stage. You grab a loose tile, hurling it at the nearest guard. It clips his shoulder, slowing him, and you leap to another roof, a weaver's. Its tile slicker than the last. The guards are relentless, one shouting for crossbows, and you know you're out of time. You spot a hay cart in the alley below, a risky landing, but your only shot. You jump, the air rushing past, and hit the hay, the impact stealing your breath. You roll off, mud soaking you, and sprint into the alley, the guards' curses fading above. The alley's a maze, its walls reeking of piss and rot. You duck behind a barrel, chest heaving, the chase's adrenaline ebbing into dread. Mara's out there, maybe marked by the crows, and you're no closer to answers. The noble's order, the execution's warning, and Elias's knife form a noose you can't slip. Joke 3. Medieval rooftops, where your only friend's a bad landing. You're an assassin, not a hare, and hares don't survive alleys like this. You need to find Mara, or a way out, before the guards, the crows, or your own choices bury you in York's filth. You're standing before the guildmaster's chamber door in the fortified safe house, the cold iron latch under your palm as York's dawn breaks softly outside, painting the hall's narrow window with pale gold. The noble's order to kill the guildmaster, possibly. Roderick lies heavy, but the thought of sparing him, warning Mara, and abandoning this assassin's life has taken root, a fragile hope against the weight of Elias's betrayal, the crow's pursuit, and the botched poisonings that mark you as York's curse. Your grease-soaked tunic is a tattered shroud, the rusty dagger at your belt, a relic of a path you're ready to leave, and the empty poison vial long gone. As you reflect on this blood-soaked journey, peace settles over you, the city's waking hum, a promise of something new. If you can just walk away. You ease the door open, the chamber dim, lit by a single candle. The guildmaster, an older man with graying hair, sits at a desk, scribbling on parchment, unaware of you, your daggers in hand. But you don't raise it. you see Mara's grin, the cathedral's cross, the execution's axe moments that broke you open, showing a life beyond killing, a mainstream historical fact. Medieval guildmasters wielded immense power, but many lived in fear, their wealth a magnet for blades like yours. This man's no monster, just a player in Roderick's feud, and you're done being the noble's pawn. You step back, the door creaking softly, and he looks up, eyes wide but not yet alarmed. You shake your head, a silent vow, and slip out, the dagger untouched. The safe house is quiet, the guards distracted by the city's dawn bustle, and you move fast, heading for a servant's exit you'd scouted. A quirky tidbit. Some assassins left notes for their targets, cryptic warnings to buy time or conscience. You've no note, but sparing him feels like a letter to yourself, a chance to be more than a killer. Joke 1. Medieval mercy, where the only victim's your old life. You reach the exit, a narrow door to an alley, and slip through. The river's damp air a balm after the safe house's wait. The crows are out there, Elias's blade sharp. But you're not running as prey anymore. You need to find Mara, warn her of the noble's order, and vanish maybe to a village where no one knows your name. You think of the Black Boar, Roderick's shadow, and how this feud's not yours to fight. Historians still argue whether assassins could escape their trade or were doomed to die in it, and you're betting on the former. Your steps lighter despite the hunger gnawing your gut. The alley's waking, a baker's cart rattling past, and you pull your hood up, blending with the dawn crowd. The noble's coin, Elias's knife, the crow's threat. Their chains you're breaking, one choice at a time. You recall the manor's bell, the rooftop chase, and how each near death pushed you here. A man choosing peace over blood. Joke 2. Assassins don't retire. They just rewrite their endings. You head for the slums, where Mara might hide. The city's hum. A song of second chances. If you can just keep moving, you pause at a bridge, the Aus glittering below, and let the dawn's light warm your face. The journey's not over, Mara's in danger, and the crows won't forget, but you're not the killer you were. The dagger's still at your belt, but it's a tool, not your soul. Joke 3. Medieval dawns, where even assassins find a new shadow to chase. You're a man, not a blade, and men can change, even in York's unforgiving streets. As the city stirs, your steps slow. The river's soft ripple a lullaby pulling you toward rest. The weight of blades and betrayals fades, replaced by a quiet hope. Like embers glowing in the morning's hush, you imagine a life beyond York, a small hearth, a name untainted by blood, where Mara's laugh might echo again. The dawn wraps you gently, its light a whisper that you've done enough. That peace is yours if you let it be. Close your eyes now, let the city's hum carry you, and drift into dreams where no shadows hunt you anymore. Thank you for journeying through this tale with the sleepy historian. I hope it brought you the gentle drift into dreams you were seeking. If you'd like another soothing history script, or have any tweaks in mind, just let me know. For now, rest well and sweet dreams.